Good afternoon. Today is Tuesday, April the 4th, 2023. I hereby call the House Local Government Committee to order. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Representatives Alexander, Burkhart, Carr, Doggett, Hale, Haynes, Holsclaw, Love, Martin, McKenzie, Miller, Moon, Raper, Reedy, Rudd, Shaw, Slater, Stevens, Thompson, Vice Chairman Wright, Chairman Crawford.
Present.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Does any of the members have any announcements or personal orders? Seeing none, today we have 17 bills on the calendar. We will try our best to get through all of those. We will be moving around if necessary. So just keep that in mind. Item number 1 on today's agenda, House Bill 1568 by Chairman Terry. Proper motion and second. Committee, we have received a 2/3 majority resolution. It's on file in my office. At this time, Chairman Terry, you're recognized on your bill.
Thank you, Chairman and Committee. This is a private act for Murfreesboro that will allow Murfreesboro to set up their own solid waste authority. And as many of you know, there's a landfill in my district. It's in the northern part of Rutherford County. And currently we have 2 issues at hand. First, the growth in Rutherford County and Murfreesboro, and second is the landfill. It's set to close in about 5 years. And so because of the growth, Murfreesboro has bought property and is in the process of building a solid waste transfer station. And that's to assist the southern part of Murfreesboro with solid waste collection and to plan for the future for when the landfill closes. And that brings me to the purpose of this is Murfreesboro is working with a company to do a biogas facility and a processing plant for their solid waste. And the plant's going to cost about $60 million. And so if they have this solid waste authority and to do that through their charter, they could qualify for funding at the federal level, roughly $16 million that would assist in the building of this facility from the Inflation Reduction Act. And they could also use revenue bonds to help fund the project as well. And so in a nutshell, this is a local bill for Murfreesboro that could help potentially save my citizens several millions of dollars and help with the environment and with the solid waste issue.
You've heard the explanation from the sponsor. Are there any questions? Questions been called on the bill. We're ready to vote on House Bill 1568. Moving on to calendar and rules. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it.
Thank you,
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Committee.
Item number 2 on today's agenda, House Bill 1564 by Chairman Littleton. I have received a vote of 2/3 majority from our governing body, and we do have a proper motion and second on the bill. You're recognized, Chairman Littleton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This changes the meeting date for Burns, and it adds a city recorder, or the Board of Commissioners shall appoint a city recorder, city police chief, and city treasurer.
You've heard the explanation from the sponsor. Is there any questions? Questions been called. We're ready to vote on House Bill 1564. Moving on to calendar and rules. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Committee.
Next on today's agenda is item number 3, House Bill 1552 by Representative Warner. Proper motion and second. We have received a 2/3 majority vote from the governing body. I do see that we have an amendment on this bill. Can you please give us your drafting code, Representative Warner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Committee. It's an honor to be here in front of you today. It's 6406 on the amendment.
That is correct. Do I have a motion on the amendment? Proper motion and second on the amendment. Representative Warner, does this amendment make the bill?
Yes, sir. It rewrites part of the bill.
Okay. Would you like for us to place this on the bill to be discussed?
Please, sir.
All right. All those in favor of amendment number 6406 going on to the bill, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Your bill is now amended. You're recognized, Representative Warner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill makes changes to the Town of Chapel Hill Charter. It changes the required number of ordinance readings from 3 meetings to 2 meetings. This will help expedite the budget process and assist the reporting to the state in a timely manner. Updates language in the charter to do with elections and mayor and alderman terms, as well as swearing in the process for the mayor and alderman. Establishes and clarifies procedures for establishing a quorum for conducting business and filing of an empty alderman seat or the mayor position. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, I stand for any questions.
You've heard the explanation from the sponsor. Is there any questions? Seeing none, we're ready to vote on House Bill 1552. Moving on to calendar and rules. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Bill moves on to calendar and rules.
Mr. Chairman and committee.
Okay, item number 4, Senate Joint Resolution 31. Got a proper motion and second. Representative Ritchie, you're recognized on your bill, on your joint resolution, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. Excited to be up in front of the committee with a Senate joint resolution that does not have a fiscal note on it, so that should make it a lot easier. What this resolution does is it is to seek to designate the city of Friendsville as the pink marble capital of Tennessee. It's the only quarry in the state that is producing this pink marble. And with that, I stand for answering any questions.
You've heard the explanation of the sponsor. Are there any questions? Questions been called on the bill. All in favor of Senate Joint Resolution 31. Moving on to calendar and rules, please say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it.
The committee chair.
Item number 5, House Bill 0835 without any objection. This will be rolled 1 week. Item number 6, House Bill 1561 by Representative Slater. We got a proper motion and a second. We have received a 2/3 majority vote from the governing body. Representative Slater, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee. This is a private act affecting only Sumner County. By unanimous voice vote, the Sumner County Commission passed a resolution prohibiting using eminent domain to acquire privately owned property in specific situations. And with that, I urge you to vote in favor of HB 1561.
You've heard the explanation of the sponsor. Are there any questions? Chairman Moon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Chairman, I beg that we do not roll this bill, that no one make a motion to roll this bill. It's a good bill, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Moon, I don't think that's a proper motion. So we, we're ready to, any other questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, we're ready to vote on House Bill 1561. Moving on to calendar and rules. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Bill moves on.
Thank you, committee.
Okay, item number 7 on today's agenda, House Bill 1567. Got a proper motion and second. I have received a 2/3 majority resolution from the governing body. Representative Butler, you are recognized on your bill.
Thank you, committee and chairman. This bill allows the juvenile judge in Overton County to finalize adoptions. And this was requested by the local body, and I think it's an excellent thing, and I would appreciate your vote. With that, I'll renew my motion.
You've heard the explanation of the sponsor. Are there any questions? Question has been called. All those in favor of House Bill 1567, moving on to calendar and rules, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Bill moves on. Item number 8, House Bill 1565 by Representative Hale. Proper motion and second. I have received a vote of 2/3 majority from the governing body, and without objection, Representative Hale will present from the diocese. You're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. House Bill 1565 was brought to me by the city of Smithville. It was a unanimous 5-0 vote. The first thing it does is that if somebody is convicted of a felony, they will allow someone to be an employee. They won't be able to hold an office during a 10-year period, but they can be an employee. It also reduces the voting requirement to appoint or remove officers and department heads from 2/3 of the council to a simple majority. And the third thing that it does is extends the ability to make appointments, promotions, transfers, demotions, suspensions, and removal of employees to the mayor and city administrator. So on behalf of the city of Smithville, I would appreciate your vote on this bill.
You've heard the explanation of the sponsor. Are there any questions? Seeing none, we're ready to vote on House Bill 1565. Moving on to calendar and rules. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Bill moves on to calendar and rules.
Thank you.
Item number 9, House Bill 468 by Representative Hemmer, without objection, has been rolled 1 week. All right, item 10, House Bill 0933 by Representative McKenzie. Got a proper motion and second. We do have requested testimony on this bill, so we will take that up after you, Representative McKenzie, explain your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This bill is a simple bill. It actually just requires the high schools just to let their students know that if they turn 18 or when they turn 18, they may be eligible to vote. Our Secretary of State has a pretty expedited, simple process, QR codes, websites, all kinds of ways to get them in. So just to make the exposure that they have upon turning 18, a great responsibility, and that is to become a voting citizen. So with that, I'd love to hear what the folks have to say.
You've heard the explanation of the sponsor. Are there any questions? Seeing none, we're ready to vote on House Bill. Oh, yeah, sorry. Without objection, we'll go out of session. And we will hear from our speaker. Is Aaron Joyce here? Miss Joyce, come on up to the table. If you don't mind, turn your microphone on. Give us your name and who you're with, ma'am. You'll have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Committee. My name is Aaron Joyce, and I'm here representing myself. I'm a sophomore in high school, and this past weekend, I attended the Tennessee YMCA Youth in Government Conference, an event designed to simulate Tennessee's legislative chambers, during which I played the role of a senator. It encouraged me to see that every student in attendance was actively absorbed in civic engagement. There was a voter registration form in the back of our conference book, which was provided to every attendee. Looking around the room at other young people who were clearly passionate about democracy, I wasn't worried that any eligible person at the conference would not register to vote. What I worried about, and still do, however, was that other youths would not. It's understandable that students wouldn't know where to begin. Some have pop culture as their only frame of reference and think that they have to physically go to a government building to register. They might not understand how easy the process is, and they could give up before they even Google. Tennessee has the 8th lowest youth voter registration rate in the country. HB 933 has the power to change that by demystifying the voter registration process for Tennessee youth everywhere. It would provide all the instructions and materials students need to register to vote in just one unbiased email crafted by the Secretary of State. It's simple and effective. With the passage of this bill, you equip every eligible student in the state with what they need to do their civic duty. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Catherine Rush Walker. Madam Walker, please come to the table, turn your mic on, give us your name and who you're with, and you will have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Representatives. My name is Katie Rush Walker, and I represent myself. I am a student at Hume Fogg Academic Magnet. and I walked from school today to be an active participant in my state legislature. I'm honored to take part in this exchange between citizens and representatives that is vital to the founding principles of our country and great state. Civic participation is essential to a healthy democracy, but despite the presence of myself and my peers, many young Tennesseans are not involved in these vital democratic processes, including elections. In speaking with young people, I have learned that many would like to vote, but they don't know how to register to vote. This is often caused by a lack of information or a fear that registering to vote is overly complicated. This lack of youth voter turnout is a concern for Tennessee's future, as many studies, including one from the American Journal of Political Science, state that voting is habit forming. When today's teenagers become tomorrow's adults, a lack of voting and community involvement could harm our great state. Despite the terrific efforts by the current Secretary of State, including the Ann Dallas Dudley Award, to honor the suffrage leader and utilize the competitive nature of high schools to increase youth voter registration, there are still many students being missed. We believe that an email would supplement this award, working in conjunction with it to improve youth voter turnout. We even have data to demonstrate this, as an email similar to the one proposed in the bill was sent out by Central Magnet High School in Murfreesboro. Before the email was sent out, only about 35 of eligible students were registered to vote. After the email was sent out, around 60% of eligible students were registered to vote. A similar email drafted by the Secretary of State containing information on voter registration would fill any gaps that may occur if students are absent or engaged in other school activities during the supplemental voter registration required by Tennessee Code Annotated 2-2-111. Thank you so much for your time and consideration of this proposed legislation.
Thank you, Ms. Walker. Both of you hang around just 1 second. Do we have any of the members have questions for our speakers? Chairman Holtzclaw.
Thank you, Chairman. And, this, as you stated, this is one of the biggest problems we have, in my view, is getting young people involved in voting. And I would ask you, with this process, is there anything additional things that we can do to get more young people involved and registered to vote?
Ms. Walker, you're recognized.
Yes, I think one thing that is currently you have to register 30 days before the election. If that time window was shortened, a lot of Tennesseans might be turning 18 they might be 18 before the election, but not before the 30 days to register to vote. So
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Chairman Holtzclaw,
What are your ages?
you're recognized.
I'm 16 years old.
And I'm 17.
And you're all going to register to vote as soon as you can, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
We appreciate your all's efforts and coming for this committee and not being afraid of us at your age. That's pretty awesome. Thank you.
Any other questions for our speakers? Representative Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I'm trying to understand, are you all against people being told they need to vote?
You're recognized.
No, sir.
I'm trying to understand what is wrong with the legislation, in your opinion.
Oh, we support this legislation.
You supported it?
We support it,
Okay,
yes.
I just want to understand, because some things y'all said, I wasn't for sure. Okay. You are in support. Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you all for being with us today. We truly appreciate it. And
Thank you so much.
hopefully we can make a difference. All right, we'll go back into session and we will hear from the sponsor, Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have nothing to add. They did a beautiful job.
All right. Representative Martin, you're recognized.
Thank you, sponsor, and appreciate you bringing this bill. I have a question, though. It says that each high school shall inform the high school senior upon reaching the age of 18. What is the consequences? Who's going to flesh this out? What happens if it doesn't take place? And who is to be held accountable?
Representative
It's rather
McKenzie.
vague.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the question. The form, I wanted to keep the form of communication as open as possible, one. And then two, I wanted to make sure that the language that was used was consistent and not biased in any way, shape, form, or fashion. That's why the Secretary of State will craft that language. But in terms of responsibility, it would be the LEA. It would flow down through them, and they would say, yes, on this date I made this announcement, this PA announcement, and their plans. But in terms of responsibility, this isn't going to be, this isn't punitive, and it's open as to how they would inform the actual students.
Representative Martin, you're recognized.
So I just want to make sure that our teachers are protected here, that if I'm a homeroom teacher and I have a child that we sing happy birthday to because they turned 18, that teacher's not in trouble for not informing them that they can register or give them some literature about that this bill addresses. This is going to be the responsibility of the LEA, not the teacher.
Representative McKenzie.
That is absolutely my intent, and that's the way I view it is like it's homecoming week. We got a bonfire today, dress up day tomorrow. It'll be maybe a couple times a year, and it doesn't have to happen on the student's birthday, but probably in the fall and in the spring. Just a general announcement go out either via the intercom or via an email, and that's how it would roll.
Representative Rudd.
I think my question was basically answered about what's the punishment for the LEA, which I assume would be the principal. Is what we came out in subcommittee. I think it's a misdemeanor if they forget to do it, or if there's miscommunication. I'm not sure what level, but it would be, I would assume it would be the principal. It's what we discussed in subcommittee.
Chairman Moon, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could we go out of session and have legal take a look? In the bill text, it's not there, but it's in the section of code because it says they shall communicate this. So can legal assist us on this?
Without objection, we'll go out of session. Legal, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Josh Houston, Legal Services. The bill itself, as Chairman Moon mentioned, does not have any punishment involved with failing to send the email. But there is a general violation of title provision in 2-19-102. And it says that a person commits a Class C misdemeanor, and I'll just read the pertinent parts. A person commits a Class C misdemeanor if such person knowingly fails to do any act which such person is required to do by this title. And so it would be a Class C misdemeanor, which is, I believe it's a $50 fine and 30 days in jail is the maximum.
Any questions for legal? Without objection, we'll go back into session. And let's see, next on the list is Chairman Carr. Okay. Any other questions for the sponsor? Chairman Carr, you're recognized.
To the sponsor, that makes me just a little concerned about if it goes into this particular section, that we're going to make a principal liable for a $50 fine and maybe 30 days in jail. I don't know if it'll ever be enforced or not, but I just have doubts with that. I mean, could we not put this in some other section or something? I mean, we already do this, but it just bothers me that we're going to probably have a principal, if he fails to do this, Representative McKenzie, that they'll be given a small fine or a few days in jail. Thank you.
Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I think the key word that I took out of what came out of our attorney's mouth was knowingly and that's more of a willful act. So if he's just so busy with his or her day, days and duties, that's not a knowingly and willfully thing. But if he's trying to subvert the vote or suppress the vote, which not one of our principals would do, that to me is the only time that he will fall into this category as it read. It's kind of, that sounds like kind of a general duty catch-all thing. I'm sure there's several other duties that the LEA has that flows down to that principal that will fall into that same type of thing. So I don't see this as being something that's going to come up in terms of someone actively, knowingly, and willingly saying, I'm not going to send out an email because I don't want my 18-year-olds to vote.
Chairman Holtzclaw.
Thank you, Chairman. And having heard this conversation, would you be willing to roll this so we can maybe amend this language a little bit to fix it?
You recognized?
That absolutely makes sense, and I'd be willing to do that.
All right. Without objection, we will roll House Bill 933 1 week.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee.
Item 11, House Bill 699 by Glenn. The sponsor has asked us to take that off notice. Without objection, it's off notice. Item number 12 on today's agenda is House Bill 1560 by Representative Wright. Chairman Wright, I have received a 2/3 majority for a resolution from the governing body. We do have some speakers to speak today, so remind me to go out of session so we can hear from your speakers, but you're recognized on your, got a proper motion and second. You're recognized on House Bill 1560.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. I appreciate being able to move up one spot from 13 to 12 on today's agenda. I also appreciate the fact that last week's meeting ran lengthy and that we were able to get in testimony of three parties at that time, and then was allowed to roll till this meeting. I would request that we hear the testimony as previously scheduled.
Without
Thank you, Mr.
objection,
Chairman.
we'll go out of session and hear from our speakers. Out of session. First speaker I have on the list today is Mayor Ed Mitchell. Mayor, if you will turn your red light on and tell us who you are and who you're with for the record, you will have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to the committee for allowing us to speak. As I said earlier, my name is Ed Mitchell. I'm the mayor of Blount County. The people of Blount County built Blount Memorial Hospital. It all started when the county applied for and received a federal grant in the amount of $201,500 during World War II. And the county matched that amount. The county then pledged $12,000 annually to cover any losses for up to 5 years for our hospital. Citizens also gave money. Children brought pennies to school. They were asked to bring a penny for a day, one day every week to school to put towards this hospital. Aluminum company workers gave 1 or more days' pay. Harrison's Construction, Vulcan Materials, and other local companies donated work and materials, all in the memory of the World War II veterans that had lost their lives. The people of Blount County have elected me to 4 terms as their mayor, hopefully because they trust me, trust that I take care of them in everything that I do, and that I take to heart every decision that I make. I would never do anything that wasn't in the best interest of all the citizens of Blount County. I've spent the majority of my time in office improving the county's financial performance. At this time, our credit rating is AA+ with Fitch and a AA with Moody's and S&P. The county authorized $90 million of debt, and $57 million still remain of hospital debt unpaid. And the hospital has defaulted on 2 bond covenants. The hospital has lost $76 million over the last 12 years. This is important to the county because the hospital is a component unit of Blount County government. That means that the hospital's finances are a part of Blount County's overall finances, and they do impact the county's credit rating. I'm the chief fiscal officer of the county. I have a duty to protect the county, and I take it very seriously. But we have a major problem, and I understand that many public hospitals have dealt with similar problems. We have a plan for near and long-term success, and we're executing this as we are bringing in professionals with credibility and people we can trust. I'm asking you to vote to approve our private act amendment for the people of Blount County. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Mayor. Next on the list is, well, let me ask, has anybody got any questions for the mayor? Seeing none at this time, our next speaker will be Craig Garrett. Mr. Garrett, please turn your mic on, give us your name and who you're with. You will have 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Craig Garrett, and I am the county attorney for Blount County, Tennessee. Thank you, the distinguished members of the committee, for allowing us to speak today regarding the importance of this amendment to our private act. Before I speak specifically to the private act, I want to just clarify a couple of points. First, there's absolutely no dispute who owns the hospital in our county, and that is Blount County. And you need to look no further than the original private act in 1945 that authorized only one entity to build and own this hospital, and that's Blount County. This same private act authorized the county to actually operate the hospital under the supervision of the quarterly court, predecessor to the current county commission. It also said if we didn't want to do that, we could create a nonprofit to operate the hospital. That's what happened. Unfortunately, a dispute has arisen with our nonprofit due to the losses that the hospital has occurred. The dispute, however, is not a part of this private act amendment that we're asking you to look at. The dispute has arisen not because over the ownership of the hospital. What has happened is that over the years, this nonprofit that's operating our hospital has bought related facilities. I think you heard testimony last week from some of the hospital personnel. They have a wellness center, a transitional care facility. They deeded those properties in their name. And now that we are at odds and probably going to replace them as the manager of our hospital, the ownership of those assets are at issue in court. Those assets were bought with county hospital revenue and county hospital bond debt. There's no question in our mind who owns it, but that is the purpose of the litigation that we have going. The private act amendments that you have will not affect that. I handle the lawsuit for the county that's in Chancery Court right now. This private act and its amendment will not play a part, or the amendment will not play a part of the ownership of those assets. And I think maybe it's represented to you that it would, and that you're somehow weighing in on pending litigation. That's not the case. I'm sitting here as I testify before this committee to tell you this amendment, the private act, will play no part in the lawsuit. What it will do, we are at the point that we have tried to work with the existing management of the hospital. We have asked them to allow UT Medical Center to come and partner with them and manage our hospital. UT Medical Center is willing to do that, to try to restore confidence in our hospital and get our hospital back on track. We've met with resistance to that. So where we are at this point, we may very well have to terminate our relationship with the existing nonprofit. When we do that, the amendments to this private act will play a part when we contract with a new nonprofit. We're in the shape we're in because the original private act didn't require a written agreement, didn't have any parameters, and we're trying to set forth parameters and require a written agreement with a new nonprofit so we won't get into the shape we are now. It's important to us and to the mayor's plan to try to save our hospital that this amendment be passed, and we very much would appreciate your vote on that. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you, Mr. Garrett. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Garrett? Seeing none, we will hear from our third speaker, Jared Anderson. Mr. Anderson, please turn your mic on, give us your name and who you're with, and you will have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and honorable committee members. My name is Jared Anderson, and I'm the chairman of the Blount County Commission. I also sit on the County Audit Committee, Budget Committee, and Finance Committee. I'm here to report to you that the commission voted overwhelmingly in February of this year by a vote of 18 in favor to 1 against to approve this private act amendment and to request that you approve it as well. I would like to also provide you some more context and background as to why we're here and to
to what led us to up to this point. We've been dealing with the issues surrounding our county-owned hospital since last June. These issues include the following. First, the hospital board violated their own bylaws in choosing their current CEO. Second, the hospital board's nominating committee meets without publishing public notice and without keeping publicly accessible minutes. Third, they refuse to share certain documents and information with the county government. And fourth, and most importantly, the hospital is facing staggering and unsustainable financial losses that threaten its viability. Each of our local governments have been grappling with these issues. In September, the Maryville City Council unanimously approved a vote of no confidence in its two appointees to the hospital board and said they would not be reappointed. In February, the Alcoa City Commission voted unanimously against reappointing one of their longstanding board members. And in November, the County Commission voted to remove all of our board members and later to appoint new board members. The hospital administration has refused to honor these votes and refused to seat our new members with one exception. They even promoted Mr. Mays, one of our removed board members, to serve as board president to send us a message. These board members are supposed to represent the County Commission, the Maryville City Council, and the Alcoa City Commission, and we in turn represent the citizens of Blount County. I honestly don't know who the hospital board members feel they're representing at this moment, but they've lost their way. That's all background, but that gives you some context that we need the clarity that this private act amendment provides. I can't believe we're at the point that we need it, but we do. On behalf of a nearly unanimous Blount County Commission and the citizens we represent, I respectfully ask you for your vote in support of this bill. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Is there any questions for the speakers? You're recognized, Dr. Love.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is for anybody who wants to respond. When does the contract with the nonprofit end?
You're recognized.
Representative Love, there is no contract. That's the problem. This has been in existence since 1945 with no written contract. There just is none. No lease, no nothing.
Representative Love.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I asked because I thought in your testimony you said that if you all were to terminate the contract, then this private act may play a role in hiring the new nonprofit. I may have misstated the question. That's what I thought you said was.
You're recognized.
Yep. There is no contract, written contract there, maybe implied contract. This nonprofit was, there just never was anything put in writing, and that's part of the problem. And that's part of what this amendment will fix if we contract with a new. We definitely will have something in writing when we do this again.
Representative Love for follow-up.
Thank you. And so you don't have a written contract. They're operating the hospital, and you need this to help you terminate the agreement and then bring another nonprofit in? Is that the best way to explain
You're
it?
recognized.
No, we don't need it to terminate because we authorized it by resolution of the county commission for this nonprofit. So a resolution by the county commission can terminate. But when we designate a new nonprofit, this amendment will set forth the parameters, require a written agreement, require us to put the parameters and define the relationship in writing, so we don't have this in the future.
Chairman Rudd, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. How many board members are there?
You're recognized.
Whoever wishes to answer.
The nonprofit has 9 board members.
Chairman Rudd.
All right. Are any of those in favor of the action you're taking, even though they, well, go ahead.
There's a dispute about who the actual board members are, as Chairman Anderson explained. Some of those have been removed, but and the county commission has appointed new members to replace them. And the hospital won't recognize the authority. Now, that is another part of the lawsuit that again has nothing to do with what is in the amendment to the private act. But there are some that are in favor, but they are in the minority because we have been able to appoint a couple of new members. Maryville's appointed one, the county's appointed one. But the existing members, some of which have been on the board for 20 and 30 years, are not in favor of this. That's who we're getting that's who our disagreement is.
Chairman Rudd.
I guess that's kind of one thing I'd ask both parties because, of course, the board of directors of the hospital say they're kind of an independent, quasi-independent private entity. But who appoints the board that runs the hospital?
The, Mr. Chairman, I'm recognized.
You're
The-
recognized.
Blount County appoints 4. City of Maryville appoints 2. City of Alcoa appoints 2, and Maryville College appoints 2. That is under one. I mean, that's not. That's under the charter of the nonprofit. That's what requires that. Those appointments used to be made directly. The hospital board was able to get an amendment to their charter back in '84, where all the nominees that come to these governmental entities come by way of a nominating committee. And recently what has happened, and what happens if the governmental entity does not want that board member, they simply have to reject them. It goes back to the nominating committee, and the governmental entities don't get to pick it. So this game of back and forth has been played here in recent months as this issue has come to a head. And so that's kind of what we're dealing with at this point.
Chairman Rudd.
I had several other questions, but you three have answered, and other members' questions have kind of answered most of that. I do have one. You had mentioned if you decide, due to the disagreement with the way the hospital has been managed, or even if it's managed great, it's taken a loss, and you feel a different direction needs to be taken. You mentioned UT. Now, you're not talking about selling the hospital to UT, just bring them in as management or to help you with it?
You're recognized.
Correct. The game plan that has come through county commission by way of resolutions. The first thing we asked the nonprofit current to do, look, we need some new board members, and we want to hire a national consultant to come in and give us a new, fresh perspective. They said no to that. Commission reconvened, and we reached out to UT and said, can you help us? And they said, we don't want to buy your hospital, but we would be willing to enter into a management agreement with you. Hang our name on the side of your hospital right under Blount Memorial will appear to be a partnership to the citizens. The commission authorized the mayor to reach out to the nonprofit BMH Inc. They said no to that. So, and actually wrote a letter to UT and threatened them, said cease and desist these discussions with the county. So now we're at the next stage that if we tried to work this out with them. The next stage is, if the commission so chooses, which they may very well, would be to terminate this nonprofit as our manager, create a new nonprofit with a manager under the parameters of these amendments, have that new nonprofit partner with UT on a management capacity. UT told us, we do not want to buy your hospital, but we're willing to help you manage it. UT has 710 beds that are lipping full. We have 304 beds at our hospital that are traditionally 1/3 empty. And we feel that we can get that partnership established, that it will possibly save our hospital, but we do realize that these rural community hospitals are fighting an uphill battle, but we're doing our best to try to save ours. And this is one of the steps that we think will help us do that.
Mr. Chairman, that does bring up one last question that
You're recognized.
the board that's currently in place that you appointed, or that all the government entities appointed, are they on staggered terms, and when do their terms expire? And I wonder how long they last and what the situation is there.
They are on staggered terms, and some of them have expired, and we have replaced them, but they won't recognize our replaced appointees, but they are on staggered terms, so they don't all come off at the same time.
All right, thank you.
Representative Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for being here. I was listening to the conversation. I always hate to get involved in local folks' business. Sometimes you never know where to go. I guess what I'm really concerned about, you said you have no contract. How do you resolve what you don't have? I mean, how do you, if you have no agreement all these years, how are you resolving something that you never had an agreement with?
Mr. Garrett,
And I
you're
guess I
recognized.
want to know why you wouldn't have had.
Well, because back in 1945, when this relationship was created and this private act was passed, it didn't require it. And maybe back in those days, they didn't do business as efficiently as they do now. But we generally have been able to negotiate issues with the hospital in the past. But we're at the point now that we just, can't reach agreements with them. That's why we have a lawsuit pending about the ownership of these related facilities. That's why we have a lawsuit about whether the board members the commission has put in place are valid or whether they're not. So unfortunately, some of these issues are having to be resolved in court. But I don't want this committee to think that this private amendment is somehow going to shortchange that. It doesn't affect those issues. Those issues are still going to be decided by the judge, and we're in the process of doing that, and probably we will be filing dispositive motions in those lawsuits in the near future, and hopefully get them resolved. We're just trying to avoid what we're dealing with right now in the future.
Representative Shaw for follow-up.
Yes, sir. But county commission do own the hospital.
Correct. Blount
That's-
County, Tennessee owns the hospital by the private act of this legislative body in 1945. It said one entity was authorized to build and own the hospital, and that was Blount County, and that's not in dispute.
So
Representative Shaw.
that is y'all's property is what I'm getting to. It's y'all's property. But you didn't at the time, because of the way people do business, you didn't draw up a contract and thing that nature. But when does this contract run out with the present people?
There is no contract, Representative Shaw. It will run out if the county commission votes to terminate that relationship and say, hey, we no longer want you to manage our hospital. We want to go in, and it'll take a vote of our legislative body, just like it did to start the relationship in 1945.
Representative Shaw, do you have another question?
Finally, follow up. I guess my question is why do you all not just do that then
Mr. Garrett.
and resolve that problem?
We intend to do that, I think. Now, I don't speak for the commission. I just advise them. I think that's probably their next step. But when we do that and contract with a new nonprofit, these amendments to this private act will set forth parameters requiring us to do it in a certain way so we don't end up in this situation again.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. The judges keep on getting these follow-ups. I guess if that be the case, when you do that, then wouldn't that be the time to bring the private act to set the parameters in place that you want to? I guess what my only concern is to pass a law right in the middle of a lawsuit. How, of course, I hear you say it doesn't affect it, but I'm not for sure it may not affect it if you pass it while you are in the lawsuit. I guess that would be my only concern.
Mr. Garrett.
Representative Shaw, I can tell you, I'm handling the lawsuit, and I can tell you that the wording in this private act will not be cited in that lawsuit, these amendments. That we intend to terminate the relationship with the existing nonprofit before you come into session again next year. This will be happening through the course of this year, and we will be contracting with a new nonprofit. This matter time is of the essence because of the money that's being lost. This hospital lost $30 million last year. They're in default on the covenants of their bond indebted, which indebtedness is in the name of the county, and we have to take action promptly. That's the reason that we can't come back to you next year and came to you in this session.
Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this one pains me because my whole life, I've known Blount Memorial Hospital. I'm in Knox County. It's just been a fixture and an icon. And what I'm hearing is my whole life, and probably my parents' life, most of theirs, it's been about a relationship. And it sounds like after all of these years of what I view as a great relationship, we got a great name and image. Here we are. But be that as it may, I guess my question, as you talked about the board makeup, why wouldn't a takeover, put out, push out, whatever you want to call it, come from the three of you all, Blount County, City of Alcoa, City of Maryville? Where are they on that, and why aren't they, kind of saying this is what we want? And I guess Maryville College, but why isn't it there?
Mr. McKenzie.
Yes.
I will take privilege here and let you know that we have received letters from the adjoining city that are in favor. They actually had a vote, and they are in favor of this taking place. Mr. Garrett, you're recognized.
And I will say this, they don't own and here's the distinction where the confusion, the cities do not own the hospital, but the nonprofit that was created, the charter, it was created by a corporate charter, and that charter is what gave the cities and the counties the authority to vote the makeup of the nonprofit. So you got the nonprofit that operates our hospital. We own the hospital, and the nonprofit BMH Inc. It has a corporate charter, and in that corporate charter, when it was first put together back in 1945, it set forth that the cities would vote for the makeup of that operating. And when we do a new nonprofit, we intend to do it in much the similar way and give the cities the vote. But as Chairman Crawford indicated, the cities are in support of this, and as Chairman Anderson indicated, the city of Maryville has voted in open meetings that, their lack of confidence in their appointed members. And so
Representative McKenzie, you got a follow-up?
Yeah, just one last one. And that is, I guess my question would be, and it'll be to both sides, why not negotiate, lawsuit, whatever, instead of us intervening? You all finish your process out, and then we move forward, if need be, with a clearly understood path forward. This seems a bit choppy. So why now? Why not you all negotiate you all's way in and out right now, and then you come back to us?
This started last fall, and we, in fact, have negotiated. We've actually been to mediation with them, where mediation is a more formal form of negotiation that was unsuccessful because they have been unwilling to do anything that we have suggested to modify the management of the hospital. And the reason that doing it now is that we are moving forward, and our last resort is to terminate the relationship. And when we do that, we want to be ready to address the nonprofit, and our timetable is before you guys reconvene next year. That's why it's important to do it at this point in time.
Representative Raper.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One question. On the outward end, it seems like that it's a 2/3 majority vote. Does anybody know that going in 1945, was it also a 2/3 vote then? Do you have any idea?
Mr. Garrett.
To do what? To 2/3 vote for what?
To come
private
up with
act.
the parameters, and then when it was established that the county did own that, was it a 2/3 vote then as far?
Representative Raper, I assumed that a private act needed 2/3 approval of the legislative body. I think, and I was way before my time, but I think they actually had 42 court members of the quarterly court back in 45. But I assume, unless the law was different, that it did take more than a simple majority to confirm a private act back in those days as well.
Thank you.
All right, that completes my list. Is there anybody else have any more questions for the speakers? Representative Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to know a little bit more about this lawsuit. So what are your other theories that you're pursuing in the
All right,
lawsuit?
Mr. Garrett. The hospital filed the lawsuit, and they had their issue was they wanted to sell the wellness center in a REIT transaction and then lease it back. And we got wind of that, and we thought that was a terrible idea. But they sued us to force us to do that. That transaction has now gone by the wayside. Okay, we filed a counterclaim that has 3 components. One is we say that these non-related properties that you have bought are really the county's, and you're simply holding them in trust as our managing agent. That's one issue. The second issue is we said the county commission has appointed 2 new board members that you failed to recognize, and we're asking the court to recognize and order those are the valid board members. And the third issue, the county commission voted to remove Denny Mays from the board by resolution back in November, and the hospital fails to recognize that, and we're asking the court to rule on that. So those are the 3 issues that we've raised, and the one issue they've raised about making us agree to sell that, the buyer has backed out of that transaction, so that has become moot. But they also are contesting our issue of the ownership of those facilities. So those are the only issues in the lawsuit.
Representative Stevens for a follow-up.
Yeah, so in section B of this private act amendment, it says, I'm sorry, section C, that the nonprofit corporation selected to serve as the manager shall not be deemed the owner of any assets. Is that in the current private act now?
No, it's not. And the operative word is of the hospital. And see, the dispute is they claim that those related facilities, quote unquote, aren't part of the hospital. So this private act wouldn't affect, what the nonprofit owns separate and apart. That's going to have to be resolved in court. But no, the private act in existence now has none of that language about ownership of assets.
Representative Stevens.
Well, I guess my concern is if we pass this, is that going to affect what the judge rules about the case?
Mr. Garrett.
No, sir, because those are transactions that occurred before this. This is a prospective amendment. This amendment won't go back and change what has happened. And so, no, this is what's going to be involved going forward. And I'm telling you here in front of this committee that I hope is on camera. So if I ever try to use that in the lawsuit, I'm trying to tell you as sincerely as I can, this will not play a role in the lawsuit. The lawsuit will be based on the fact that, hey, you bought all of these things with county government revenue, and you can't, just because you deeded them in your name, that doesn't make them yours when you're our agent working for us.
Final question, Representative Stevens.
Thank you. And then you mentioned maybe switching to a new nonprofit to manage this. Has that been set up yet, or is
No,
it
we're in the my co-counsel, Mark Mamontov, is working on the charter language for that at this time. It's not a real complicated process to create a nonprofit.
Representative Love, did you want to be recognized?
Yes, sir. And I don't know if Representative Stevens was. Yeah. And you may have answered one of my questions. So the nonprofit, you're saying purchased these other facilities with revenue from Blount County Hospital.
Or bond debt for the hospital.
Or bond debt. Okay. Mr. Chairman, is it possible to bring the other group from last week up? Or is it? Okay.
No, sir.
All right. Okay.
Any other questions for our speakers? Seeing none, thank y'all for coming and testifying today. We know that's a good little trip down for everybody, but we'll go back into session.
We
without
appreciate it. Thank you.
objection.
Thank y'all very
much. And I will recognize Vice Chairman Wright.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. So now you know absolutely more than you ever wanted to know about a private act. As a 10-year recovering county commissioner, this is a lot more complex than what we normally experience as someone looking, as a committee looking at a private act. This bill has worn me out because you start looking for an act of 1945, and I was born in 1945, so there wasn't much going on around here because I remember it. And we're looking for the 187th paragraph or chapter. I hate to hold this up, but the fine print right here is 2 sentences from the state of Tennessee that says, Blount County, you can build a hospital and you can raise up to $200,000 in bond. Well, actually, we see they went wrong then because the testimony was it was 201,000. Well, I don't know what it was, but it was more than 200,000. The only reason I say that is because if you take the Private Act of 1945 and you look on our dashboard today and you read the first sentence, be it enacted by the General Assembly, State of Tennessee, that Blount County, Tennessee is hereby authorized and empowered to build, purchase, and or operate and maintain a nonprofit hospital in said county, subject to the following. There are 5 subject to the followings. And one of them says if you lease it out, that person that's leasing it out is responsible to you. And right now, I would submit to you that the board at Blount Memorial Hospital thinks they're independent. and they're acting as though they're independent, and they're not responding to the needs of Blount County. My fellow representatives, what you had seated at the bench were two people that are elected to serve the folks of Blount County. They're putting what they're acting upon on the line. What you see from the people that are administering Blount County Hospital, it's a different situation. They're there as employees. They're there to make whatever best advantage financially they can out of the hospital. So let me go back to where we stand today. This is the 7th private act of 8 that we're handling today, and we've already taken more time than all the others put together, and we approved all the others. So I ask that you approve this private act just as you approve all private acts. And with that, I'll stand for questions. Please do not be as technical as you were with the
Okay.
with the
You've heard
people
the
that.
explanation of the sponsor. Are there any questions? Representative Martin, you're recognized.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. If it would be in order, I would make a motion that we defer this private act to the second calendar of the year 2024.
That is a proper motion. We do have a proper second. Is there any opposition? We do have opposition. So we will take it to a vote. All those in favor, hang on just a second. Let me clarify one thing. Just to clarify so everybody knows exactly what we're voting on here. We are voting on whether we're going to send this to the second calendar of 2024.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
since it's a motion on the floor, may I make comment to it?
Sure.
As stated by the expert testimony of the people from Blount County, we're only here for the 4 months. And if we do not take this up until next year, they're needing relief on only this one subject. How do they contract in the future? That's what this private act deals with. They need to take that home with them, and it will only be effective, and we'll have to go to legal and ask this, but I believe it takes 2/3 act of the local legislative body to place what we authorize them to do. They have to place it into effect. So again, for a second time, I come to you saying, we're denying the representatives of Blount County the right to put their name on the ballot and serve the people of Blount County unless we move this forward today. So this is to roll it to next year.
Yes, sir.
I would ask that the committee deny that request.
All right. So now we're back to the vote. We're voting on whether to send this to the second calendar of 2024. That would be a yes vote. Those that oppose that, please vote no. So all in favor of the proposed rolling to 2024, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
Noes have it. We're back on the bill. Question has been called on the bill. That's non-debatable. We're ready to vote on House Bill 1560. All those in favor of moving House Bill 1560 to calendar and rules, please say aye.
Aye.
Those no. The ayes have it.
Truly, I appreciate you, Mr. Chairman, and more especially the committee. Thanks.
All right, back to item 13. Without objection, 499 by Chairman Rudd will be taken off notice. Item 14 by Chairman Rudd. Do I have a motion? Proper motion and second. I do see that it has an amendment. Can you please give us your drafting code?
That drafting code is 006461.
That is correct. Do I have a motion on the amendment? Proper motion and second on the amendment. Does the amendment make the bill, sir?
Yes, it does.
All right, without objection, we'll go ahead and place the amendment on the bill. All those in favor of Amendment 6461 going on the bill, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No? The ayes have it. You're recognized on your bill, Chairman.
Present from my
Rhodes.
seat, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. This is brought to me by the Secretary of State. It is it's combining two different things since we're near the end of the committee process. Instead of running them separately, we've combined two different elements. The first part is there is currently only one office in the entire state for primaries that is not determined by the Democrat and Republican Party chair and executive committees, and that is the qualifications approval to run as a presidential candidate in a primary. And right now, the Secretary of State has that, so he's transferring that authority to the county, the respective state party chairs, so that they can meet the bona fide status and approval of the state party. And that's what that does. The second part of the legislation requires members of the state election commission to abide by the same ethical standards that we passed for ourselves last year. That is, if you are a member of the state election commission and you are contracted to work in a political campaign that you're overseeing, that you are to let the election commission know that within 30 days of the contract. It doesn't say you can't work. It just says you have to let them know in case there's a conflict, so they know up front. That is very similar to the ethics that we passed for ourselves last year.
You've heard the explanation of the sponsor. Chairman Reedy, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Rudd, I'm looking at it. I'm a little confused, not about the piece of legislation, but it says it not significant on fiscal review, but then the administration's position is flagged for fiscal impact. Can you explain that to me, or
Chairman
do
Rudd?
you have a clue?
Well, it may not be. I don't have a clue. It could be the administration. I don't know. But this is a decision made like any other primary on one part, and then the ethics commission, I keep saying the election commission would simply be to notify. I don't know where the fiscal impact that the administration feels it is. It's not putting a burden of copies or additional work or files or personnel that has to be hired. There's a decision made like any other, like us, Congress, Senate, governor, that each respective political party makes sure that the person running is qualified as a Republican, a bona fide status like all other elections. That is no expense to us at all. If anything, it takes the burden off of the Secretary of State to research that, and it transfers it to the party, so it would not cost the state anything. And the other part is the State Election Commission. It reinforces their ethical standards. And again, it doesn't require anything other than a member of the commission, if he has a conflict or a contract, to just simply let them know. So I don't know where the expense would come in.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Since the primary is already being held, there wouldn't be any expense determining who can be on the ballot.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm happy to support this piece of legislation.
Chairman Doggett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excuse me, and I just want for clarification. This process, if a person meets all the requirements to run for president in our state, the political parties will not be just choosing one person on the for that primary. It will be just like it is for every other election on the ballot that we go through, that there may be multiple candidates in a primary ballot. Is that correct?
Chairman Rudd.
Yes, that's correct. Whoever meets that standard, like it is for all other offices, whether it's one or whether it's 50, they would be permitted to run. They're not going to be able to pick and choose. They're each respective state party, and I'm not an expert on the Democrat Party's bylaws, but I imagine they're fairly similar. They have to meet a bona fide status, vote so many times, Democrat or Republican. And if you choose to run as an independent, Libertarian, a Green Party, or any other party where you're on the ballot, they would have to simply meet the state standards as they do now.
Chairman Doggett.
Thank you so much.
Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know I'm out of order, but I would like to recognize my predecessor. I call this the Joe Armstrong seat. Former Representative Joseph E. Armstrong.
Out of
Thank you,
order.
Mr. Chair.
Representative Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I want to know if I'm on the correct bill right now. Apologize for being distracted. Is
We
it
are
House?
on item 14, House Bill 0772, with the amendment 6461 added to it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That is correct.
Thank you. You're recognized, sir.
Reading failure to timely file disclosure constitute calls for removal under Section 211, 113. Could you explain or elaborate on that exactly?
Chairman Rudd.
Thank you. Yeah, simply, if a person who is a member of the State Election Commission, if they fail to notify the State Election Commission that they are under contract to consult in a political campaign where they're receiving money or compensation, that would be grounds for the State Election Commission to remove them, and as well as the state for ethics violations. It's only if they fail to disclose that. If they disclose it, it doesn't say they can't keep working in the campaign. It just simply says they have to let them know that they could have a conflict, because if you're receiving monetary compensation in a campaign, you shouldn't be voting on the outcome of that election.
Representative Miller, do you have a follow-up?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Now, timely is when is timely established?
Chairman Rudd, you're recognized.
I'm referred, well, it says in the legislation that it's 30 days from the time that you enter the contract, and timely would mean within that 30-day period. If you wait 60 days, 90 days, or don't let the election commission know, could have been a slip up. The election commission, state election commission, would be the one that decided whether you made a mistake or not. But you, in a timely manner, that means from the time, let's say that you're on the state election commission and you enter, let's say I'm on the state election commission and I enter in a contract to help do consulting work for you in your campaign. Then at that point, I have to do a timely notice within 30 days, let them know. And then they at that point, if they find out you have entered into a contract and they're not notified, they would probably contact you and say, hey, and they could say, well, I just forgot about that, and I'll let you know about the other three. So, and then they would determine that themselves.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The legislature, we've just appointed the Republican and the Democratic members of the State Election Commission. I think those are four-year terms. Four-year terms.
I'm not sure.
Chairman
Sir.
Rudd.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I believe they are.
So if this bill went into effect, would it be retroactive that we go back to the currently appointed commissioners, or does it take effect in the next 4 years?
Chairman Rudd.
It takes effect of anyone who's currently on the board. It takes effect upon this becoming law. It would not be retroactive. The 30-day notice, if they, let's say somebody is already in, let's say somebody's already in a contract. Let's say, like I said earlier, I was on the election commission and I was contracted to you. Immediately upon this becoming law, I would have to let them know. And now if it was a past contract, which I'm no longer working for you or receiving compensation, I wouldn't have to let them know. It's once it becomes law, they'd have to let them know that of what campaign they're currently involved in, or
Any
what
other
contract they're
questions?
currently under.
Any other questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, we're ready to vote on House Bill 0772. Moving on to calendar and rules. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Moving on to calendar and rules. All right, committee. We're going to jump over to item 17 by Chairman Grills. I didn't realize he was in the room.
And Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Let me also apologize to Chairman Grills. I should have pushed him in front of me when I came to the podium earlier. Thank you, Chairman Grills.
Okay. All right. We're on item 17, House Bill 1569. I have received a resolutions of 2/3 majority from the governing body. I do see we have an amendment. Can you please give us your drafting code?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 7006.
That is correct. Do I have a motion? Without objection, we will hear the untimely filed amendment. I was not aware that it was untimely. I'm sorry. You're recognized on your bill. Does the amendment make the bill?
Yes, sir, it does.
All right, let's go ahead and place that on there. All in favor of Amendment 7006 going on the bill, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Your bill is now amended. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. This bill is a private act that affects only Obion County. And it gives them the authority to sunset their highway commission.
You've heard the discussion of the sponsor. Are there any questions for the sponsor? Question has been called on the bill. We're ready to vote on House Bill 1569. Moving on to calendar and rules. All in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Moving on to calendar and rules.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also would like to say that I've learned a lot about private acts over the last 30 minutes. So it's been a learning experience. You have a good day.
Yeah, but I can't do it. It has to be right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next item is item 15. No, wait just a second. Hold on. I know we're getting close, but we're not there yet. Item 15, House Bill 475 by Crawford is off notice. Now, moving to item 16, House Bill 864 by Crawford. Chairman Crawford, you're recognized.
Thank you. Thank you, committee. This particular bill has an amendment that I need to place on there, sir. It is drafting code 6720.
Motion and second has been made on amendment number 6720, which makes the bill. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Chairman Crawford.
Thank you. The purpose of this legislation would prohibit metropolitan governments from acquiring a supermajority vote of the LLB for improvements, renovations, or replacements of existing facilities owned by the metro government that are to be used for similar, I guess, same thing as what they're doing now. So I apologize. My notes I dropped the water on them a while ago and I can't even read them.
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for bringing the bill. I guess that must be the same voting requirement applicable to ordinances of the legislative body in general.
That is correct. We're just asking that since we're trying to do renovations, we do have to include the word demolished because that's what it says in Metro Government's charter. So that's the reason we added that to it. All we're wanting to do is go in and do some remodeling and improvements around the fairground. So that's what this bill would do, is it would allow us to do that under a vote of simple majority and not supermajority.
Questions of the sponsor, Representative Shaw.
I want to know from you, Mr. Sponsor, how do you remodel without demolishing?
Well, I guess you could be really careful as you were taking the cabinets apart and save the nails and
Thank
and
you,
reuse
Representative
them.
Shaw. Are there other questions of the sponsor? Question, the bill's been called. If seeing no objection, all in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Sending House Bill 0864 to calendar and rules.
Finish this out, sir.
Oh, so I get to turn to the last page?
Yep.
I've got the last page. I didn't know I was going to turn to it. Let me borrow your last page. Before we close, do any members have announcements or personal orders? Oh, we have an announcement. Final calendar for local government committee, it will be Tuesday, April 11th, 2023. Deadline to put bills on notice be Wednesday, April the 5th, 2023, 3:30 p.m. With that, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. We're adjourned.
Johnny Shaw, you got that, the 5th. You got